Hello, welcome to CLSP Politics. Sean Briscoe speaking. So we got some really interesting polling a couple days ago, and I thought I'd go over it. I mentioned it on a show I was a guest speaker at, and I thought I'd go in a little bit more detail. There's some interesting polling methodology. I always like to put this in so that way you guys know how it was all put together and who put it together. So it was done between the 15th and the 19th of September. It has a error rate of about 2.5%, which is solid. I'll take that. Anything, honestly, these days, anything under 5, and you just got to run with it. It was all put together by the Pew Research Center. So um, this is I like polls that put this stuff together. Verisite's the one who conducted the poll, and it's based on Pew Research Center polling election results plus some other stuff. So it's very well thought out. They did their homework. This is a decent poll that I think we can really look at and try to understand what's going on as we look in the future. Now, the one thing everyone's talking about is Congress, right? That's why all the gerrymandering's happening. All the governors are playing games with the voters and all this other stuff. So the way it's looking is that the Democrats lead 47 to 42 among U.S. adults, with 11% undecided among people who say they are definitely or very likely to vote. So you have effectively 1 in 10 of the people who said they're definitely going to vote haven't decided how they're going to vote yet. And the margin is 50 to 45. So you're looking at still a pretty tight race in Congress. Now, just because the Democrats are ahead by 5 points here, I'll be honest, doesn't really mean much when the gerrymandering skews these generic large, they can skew them up to 20 points. We're seeing that in Texas right now. So I'm glad to see the Democrats are ahead. And if this was a fair game and the democracy was being a democracy, then we would be just fine. But this is a good starting point, but the Democrats need to do better if they're going to hope to do much. This is how the Democrats' lead has over time. This starts around May, and that May to now is what they're looking at. So we're seeing it narrowing, and it always does this. It'll continue to narrow, but I'm happy to see that at least we're on top, right? But where you see that the light blue and the light red around that, that's the potential error range. So you can see that they're touching, which means that in an alternate universe, who knows, the Republicans might be tied with us. There's a statistical possibility of that, something to be aware of. This is an interesting right versus wrong track. June, 28% of U.S. adults said that the county is on the right track, while 60% say it's on the wrong track. 12% don't know. That's going to be, by the way, a consistent thing here. What that's telling me is that 1 in 3 Americans do not like the direction the country is going. And this is where it's been. So honestly, there's been around 30%. So it's gone down to 28. And probably in the super high 50s, and now it's at 60. So that spreads, and the more that spreads, the more dynamic races become. Again, if you like to subscribe to this channel, it's at CLSP Politics. I'm on Substack and I'm on YouTube. Feel free to check out my channels. I have on my YouTube channel, I go back over a year, and I have playlists on Texas, on the entire 2024 cycle, the stuff that I've done in Wisconsin. Anyway, some interesting stuff there. You should check it out. All right, Trump's approval rating. This is interesting. So he has a 42% approval rating and 55% disapproval. That's a net. He's underwater by 13 points. That's a lot. Usually, presidents being at the top tend to be around, almost always negative, but they're always above negative 10%. So 9, 8, 7s and stuff like that. Trump runs a little hotter. He goes neg 13. And the only thing, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in this video, the only thing he's actually above water in on every issue across the board is the is border security, which I think is pretty interesting. So yeah. So on the immigration, civil liberties, this is where the breakdown becomes pretty interesting. 73% of adults say the law enforcement should not be able to detain people because of the color. You know, that just seems like a no-brainer. But no, apparently, if you have any melanin at all on your skin, they can just pull you over and ask you for papers. It's crazy. So let me blow this up a little bit. These are from May to now. This is the approval rating for deportations, immigration, and crime and public safety, all of which the Republican policies are all underwater. This is the environment. This is what they ran on in 2024. This is where they put their, the line and said, this is what we're running on. Everything we're going to do is we're going to be green all through here. Everything we're going to do is going to be lovely. And we're going to super help the midterms. Well, this is what the Republican Congress now has to run on in the midterms. They're underwater on the three things that they talked about the most. Now, they talked about some other things, but don't worry. They're underwater on those two, and we'll go over them. But deportation, immigration, and crime and public safety are the three things they said they were going to take care of. And they are underwater on all of it. Immigration, civil liberties, only 19% say they are the color of a person's skin is sufficient factors. I mean, and that police should, anyway, it's just only 19%. Again, like and subscribe if you like what's going on. I'm on YouTube and Substack. Please check me out. Immigration, civil liberties. So this is the only place where you've got a border security that's in the green for Trump. This is it. This is the only place, and he's sitting at +8. It's and honestly, I bet if when they dig down deeper, like on specific issues, he's dying. On this one specifically, he's doing better. And it's simply because people don't understand how border security, immigration, and the economy work together. So the problem in the disconnect is they don't understand who picks the crops. They don't understand who goes into these specifically food manufacturing and agriculture, what these individuals actually do and who's doing it. Of the 2 million people that participate in that, half them, 1 million of them, are undocumented immigrants who are currently not going into work and or heading back across the border. So yay, border security. Also, boo, the economy is about to take a huge tank. I saw a big room full of farmers in Arkansas wondering who's going to buy their soybeans. That's going to come back. And what's weird is and we're going to talk about a couple other things that are going to affect the rural economy. What's weird is those other industries are all being hurt, and they're all going to be hurt dramatically more in rural areas than they are in urban and suburban areas. And when you look at where the vote comes from for Republicans, it's in rural areas. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out in 2026. Okay. The economy and tariffs, 36% plurality said their personal finances are worse than a year ago. Trump's policies are seen as making the economy worse, 53 versus 24% saying better. Okay, because this was the other thing Trump ran on, was the economy, right? Okay, so his tariffs are unpopular, 34% approval rating. When forced to consider trade-offs between higher prices or job protection, 54% say don't protect the jobs. 33% say do protect the jobs. So they're underwater in the one area where they said we're going to protect the jobs and bring those jobs back. Those jobs are never coming back. And I think people just finally realized it, and now they're just stuck with high prices. So this is how it kind of breaks down. Trade with other countries, drastically below water, kind of stable, but slightly going up. But when you're that below underwater, who cares? Jobs in the economy, flat, but on its way down. And then prices, inflation. I'm going to get back to this one because there's another one I think that's going to be the biggest issue in 2026. But this one, this prices, inflation number, that's one of the two. So America says Trump's policies make the economy worse. Well, that's what America's saying. You want the green to be the bigger number, not the red, right? And those that say that's about the same might as well be in the red, because the whole point was to make things better, right? Build back better, make the world, make America great again. Yeah. America's prefer lower prices, and I just touched on this. 54% would prefer to have lower prices than protect the jobs. Interesting. Government funding. If the federal shutdown occurs, 34% say it'll be worse for Republicans, 23% say Democrats, and 34% say a pox on both their houses. So what this is, that 34% are all the independent voters who, in some delusional understanding in their brain, seem to think that by not picking a side, you're immune or something. I'm not exactly sure. But then when everything goes to crap, when the Republicans take over because they can't govern, I just like to remind everyone, 9 out of 10 financial crises have happened during a Republican administration. 9 out of 10. That's not an accident. That's called profiteering. So these 34% keep forgetting that, apparently, and they didn't need to take better history classes or something. At the end of the day, if the Democrats hold strong on healthcare funding, more people will think the Republicans it's a Republican shutdown. That's what this data is saying. In a generic shutdown, Republicans are about 10 points ahead of Democrats. Democrats block for healthcare funding. Really doesn't change. In fact, technically there's more people think it's the Republicans' fault, and if Dem block to fight Trump, well, then if that's the reason they do it, if they're shutting down the government to block Trump, all of a sudden we get an extra 6 points. So really, there's no loss here for Democrats to shut it down. Now, we go up to 30, the Republicans stay at 36, so all those independent voters come over to us. And the Republicans technically do worse. I think they lose votes to the independent vote in that case. Here's a couple of other issues that the Republicans are insanely underwater on that I thought were worth bringing up. Education, they have no respect for it, wouldn't expect. And these are all relatively statistically flat, right? You've got government funding and social programs and managing the federal government workforce. These are what we call governance. And the Republicans can't do it. They haven't been able to do it in decades. I don't know why these people keep getting reelected. And the other one that was foreign policy, which weirdly has gone up. And it's interesting, like Trump put out an olive branch to Putin, right? About a midway through this data. And then since then has been pretty pro, UN, NATO. And, I feel like he's walking away from the Russians. And the more he does that, the better this foreign policy is going to look. Because it's the one bipartisan issue. If it went up for a vote in Congress right now, Democrats and Republicans would both vote to back to back NATO, to back Europe, everything, to go right in there and push Russia back into Russia. Right now, that would be the most bipartisan vote that you're going to get out of Congress. But I think the one issue I think will end them all, there are actually two of them, will be healthcare but it's also related to price inflation. But it's going to be healthcare. Look at that. It's underwater and heading underwater. Price inflation, which is connected to healthcare and food and rent and everything else. I'm guessing that $320 tax rebate that everyone but the poorest got, but then the uber wealthy got huge tax breaks. I can't imagine that $320 spread out over a year is going to have a much of an impact when you go to the grocery store and you're spending an extra $50 every time because stuff just got expensive. So, yeah, healthcare, price inflation. Healthcare specifically against the Republicans, because if you go back in my channel, you'll see I did a show on rural hospitals and what's going down with them, and none of it's good. In fact, it's really, really bad. Rand Paul voted against it because his state's going to lose over 30 rural hospitals. Now the Republicans did a cutout. They took $250 billion out of rural hospitals. Then they gave them $50 billion back. Most of these hospitals were on the edge or technically not turning a profit before they pulled the $250 billion. So throwing $50 billion back into a pot that's missing the other $200 billion when they were just barely making it anyway doesn't really change the math. So that'll be interesting. Now, those are the two I'm watching. Those are going to be the two that I think will be the end of the GOP controlling Congress. And if you want to see the whole breadth of everything, how it's really all looking, this is a good one. You want all the blue dots on the right side of this, the approving side. That's where you want the blue dots, because the red is disapproving. So literally, like I was saying, border security is the only one that has the Trump administration, Republicans, with any positive, anything positive. I mean, look at that. The bottom two, healthcare, price, and inflation. Those two, the Democratic Party needs to bang the drum on both of those. And price inflation is also connected to trade with other countries, which is at 57%. And jobs in the economy, which are at 54% on, disapproval. So all of those are the three things that if you're a Democrat running for office right now, you need to be banging the drum on, because that's what's going to get it through. So anyway, I just would like to say thank you, everybody, for watching. Like and subscribe. I do these kind of things periodically when I see a decent poll. Also have a whole series about the primaries that are coming up. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be like over 50 shows just on the primaries. I'm going to do each state, and I'm going to break it down, show you what you need to be looking for. I'll start with the stuff that's happening in March, because that's the first real wave of primaries. But I'm going to go right. And then June, we're going to have 19 primaries in June. June's going to be nuts. And then it's going to taper back. But 19 out of 50 states are going to have their primaries in June, which is kind of crazy. So I'm looking forward to, but that's what's coming up ahead. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out.